Fiona and I love Chinese food. We love a takeaway, we love a good sit down, and I love cooking them at home, but for a long time I couldn't get the fried rice right. But now I can, and I can even do it better than a Chinese restaurant. Let me tell you how. Hello, welcome to English Country Life. Welcome to the cottage on a frankly miserably disappointing early autumn day. My name's Hugh and I live here on this small holding in rural Lincolnshire with the fabulous Fiona. Here we grow lots and lots of food and we try and make as much of our food as we can. But we don't want it to be boring and worthy food. We want it to be spicy and exciting and interesting, and you don't get a body like this with boring food. And one of the things we love is Chinese food. We love cooking it, we love eating it. But I couldn't get my rice quite right for a long time. I did a lot of research and now I'm reasonably happy that our rice is better than restaurant quality egg fried rice. So I want to share the 3-step process so that you yourself can produce fantastic quality rice at home. Right, if you want your rice to taste great, rice doesn't taste as much, and guess what? Water doesn't taste as much. So we've got to change that, haven't we? And how I like to do that to make fantastic rice is to cook the rice in stock, because then you're creating something much more like a risotto. You're building flavour in, even on the inside of the rice. Now, of course, you can do that with a stock cube, but it's even better if you make a beautiful, rich, homemade stock. And I want to show you very quickly how we make ours. I'm going to use 6 chicken carcasses to make our stock in a big pan. You can use however much or as little as you want according to what you've got available. Now, these are roasted off carcasses after we've taken the meat off, and I use a big cleaver just to break them open so the stock water can get in amongst and get all the flavour out. And I'll put them in this really big 5-gallon pan. You want the biggest pan you've got, and you do want to leave a little bit of headroom. So as you can see, 6 carcasses in a 5-gallon pan, roughly half fill the pan. Now we want some veg and some herbs. Stocks and soups for me are the way to use up some sort of misshapen or veg and stuff that won't keep. So I've got some forked carrots here and they're going to be absolutely perfect, and also some onions that have bolted. They won't last, but the flavour's absolutely fine. Herb wise, I'm going to use a combination that I like, which is rosemary, it is sage, it is thyme, and we have the world's biggest bay tree, I think. So we're going to add some bay leaves as well. Prepping the veg is easy. Remove all the sort of dirt, get the skins off, top and tail the onions, but I will also just cut them open and I will remove the flower stalks from the bolting, because when you look at those, and I'll take one out here so you can see it, they're a bit brown, they're a bit soft. That's what spoils the onion, and I don't want that flavour in my stock. I want to put the onions in the stock roughly in quarters. I tend to break each quarter open, so again the flavour can come out. With the carrots, I'll take the top growth off, I'll break the legs apart so there's no trapped dirt, I'll just cut them up into chunks and we'll throw those into the pan in the same way. All the solids are going to get sieved out. Celery, 1 piece of celery per carcass, 1 onion, 1 carrot, and we'll put those in as well. And then I'll add my herbs, and again, sprig of rosemary, I'm going to add a sprig of thyme, I'm going to add a couple of sage leaves and only 1 bay leaf per carcass. I find that gives enough flavour. Now, when I've done that, I'm going to add some garlic, and all I do with that is crush it with the back of the knife, take the skin off, and I'll throw the clove in whole, and again, 1 clove per carcass. There's a recipe down in the description. Now, I use cold water. So I'll put the water in just to cover, I'll put the heat on and I will bring it up till it's just about boiling on a large burner. When it gets to this level, I'll move it across to a smaller burner. I'll turn that burner right down just so that I'm getting steam and the occasional bubble. I'll leave that to infuse for 2 to 4 hours and then cool overnight. The next morning you get this, that layer of fat on the top is magical for flavour. The stock's now cold and all I'm going to do is sieve out all of the solids. I'll just put another pan or a bowl next to it with a sieve on top, remove all the solids and leave that beautiful, wonderful, flavourful stock. Step 2 of the process is how you cook the rice. You cannot make brilliant fried rice from freshly cooked rice, as odd as that seems. What you need is flavorful, separate grains of rice, and there's a particular cooking technique to do that. So what we're going to do is cook the rice in just enough stock that it will cook but not leave lots of leftover liquid, and we're going to age it for a day. There's a little bit more to it than that, so let's show you how we do it. I am going to bulk prepare this rice and freeze a lot of it. So the first thing I do is weigh out the amount of rice. About 100 grams a serving is right, but I'm going to prepare a kilo of this rice, and most of that is going to get frozen for future use. Now what's really important is, whilst I'm weighing it in a measuring jug, because I want to see what the volume of that rice is. And from experience I can tell you that you've got about 1200 mils for a kilo of rice. Next job is to wash that rice. All rice is coated with like sticky starch, and if you don't wash that off, your rice is going to stick together and it won't take all the flavours of frying. So put a bit of cold water on it and then swirl it around with your hand. And what you'll see quite quickly is that that water turns white, almost like sort of semi-skimmed milk or something. And what I'll do is I'll wash that rice around like this. I will pour off the liquid, and honestly, you're going to have to do this 4, maybe 5 times, I find. But look at the colour of that water. That's just starch. Now, starch and water is wallpaper paste, effectively. Right, here's a little trick. Do use your sieve if you want. People say, oh, you could just have a steady hand and pour it off. Yeah, I always lose a few grains of rice when I do that. So I put a sieve under at the end, and then I just pop those grains back into the pan. And then it's do it again. And I know this sounds long-winded, but honestly, as you do it, the whole process is a few minutes, and after 4 or 5 rinses, the water goes clear. Then I'm going to add my stock. Now, remember that fat we talked about on the top? So I'm going to mix that in so that all the rice gets a little share of it. And I need to use 1.5 times the volume, not the weight, the volume of stock to the volume of rice that I had. So I had about 1200 millilitres of rice. I am going to add 1800 millilitres of stock to that rice. And then we'll put all of that in a pan. We'll give it a little stir. We'll bring that up to a very gentle boil. And once it's done that, we will put the lid on. We will turn the heat down, and we will let it simmer for about 5 minutes, and it will absorb all of that liquid that we've added. So there we go, that's moving it across onto the smaller burner. And honestly, you may want to stir it once, but keep the lid on. We're steaming rice in this last part, and look at it, see how separate those grains are. They're not all stuck together, and if I part them, you'll see it hasn't burnt to the bottom of the pan, and there is no liquid remaining. And really, that's what we're looking for. Then we're going to let the rice cool, put it in a bowl, and I will put some sort of lid on it, and once it's lost most of its heat, I'll put it in the fridge overnight. And that is the secret to really good fried rice. Here it is the next day. It will pack down a little bit, so just kind of fluff it up with a fork, and that's going to make the most wonderful. You can see how separate those grains are. They're not all glued together. Now once it's cooked and it's got liquid in it, you need about 250 grams a portion, and because there's 2 of us, I usually freeze 500 gram portions and just the odd one with 250 grams in case Fiona's out for the evening or I am, and only one of us wants fried rice. And I use generally Ziploc plastic bags. I flatten the rice out, and then I will basically do up the top, and I'll label it for when I did it. And we reuse the bags time and time again, and we just get a freezer drawer full of these bags of rice, and we can use them in a moment to make brilliant fried rice. Now that we've got our preserved and created beautiful rich rice, we've got to learn to cook it for fried rice, and there's a few little tips and tricks here. 1, use a wok. 2, have a high heat burner. 3, pre-prepare all your ingredients because, oh my goodness, this is going to go quick. 4, use the right fat to cook in. Let's get going. For a fried rice, we don't need that many ingredients, but I do add a chilli, which is a little bit unconventional, spring onions for definite, and normally shallots, but I use these. These are the bulbs of spring onions I grew earlier in the season, and they're delicately flavoured like shallots. So I'll add a few of those If I hadn't got them, I would just use conventional shallots. What's the other ingredient that we want? Well, definitely some eggs. So we'll move the chicken aside, who's gone a little bit broody, and we'll gather up a couple of really fresh eggs. And that really does make a difference. Off we go. Same sort of thing, we're going to clean up our garlic, we're going to remove the skin, and most of these ingredients are going to be finely diced. So we'll chop up our garlic, and we're doing all this in advance because this is going super quick. With the chilli, I will keep a few fine shreds for garnish, and then I'll finely dice the rest. And that'll go in the same bowl as the garlic because we're going to fry it all together. And finally, I'm going to dice either my shallots, or I'm going to do what I've got here, which is the bulbs of spring onions. But either way, it's a delicately flavoured allium. With the spring onions themselves, obviously take the roots off, take off too much of the top growth, the really hollow stuff. And then again, I'm going to keep some green bits for garnish. The white bits I will finely slice, and they will go in for cooking. Finally, the eggs. What I'm going to do with the eggs is just put them in a bowl and I'll beat them because we don't want to stop once we stop. You really want a hot pan for doing fried rice, and I'm using a wok burner here, but use your biggest burner, get the pan hot. I fry in lard. It's much better than vegetable oil. It gives us this lovely meaty flavour. Yes, that's smoking, but don't worry. We're going to cook all our finely diced ingredients in 30 seconds flat in a really hot pan. Push them to one side, then we add the egg. We'll move that around, and again, that's 30 seconds flat. Note, because this was once a non-stick pan, I'm using a wooden spatula, not metal. Once those two are done, we put the rice in on top. We'll give that a good mix round, and almost we're there now, it's just flavour. So what do we do for flavour? We take some dark soy sauce and we squirt it around the rim of the wok, and we mix that in. And then I'm going to add 2 powdered ingredients. I'm going to add a good big pinch of white pepper and a good big pinch of MSG. And if anybody gives you scare stories about MSG, it's seaweed extract, and there is no scientific evidence that it has any harmful effects whatsoever. What it does do is trigger the umami in your taste buds, so that sort of savoury, rich flavour that we're looking for. And after 3 minutes of cooking, this is what we've got. And that's why I like to prep the ingredients in advance. You can do a wonderful healthy meal, and cost to us of that egg fried rice is less than 50 pence to put that on the table. And if we go a bit more advanced, and now we've got some sweet and sour chicken balls that we've made ourselves, and we'll use our garnish, so we'll have the green spring onions, we'll have our chilies. Even then, we're looking at round about £1 a portion. That's how we do fried rice, and it's a really important dish, partly because it demonstrates things that we're passionate about. We don't want to waste any of the livestock that we produce, so making that wonderful stock from the bones actually makes that we are really working to use every last little bit of them. But it's also important that we don't do that to be worthy, that we do it to produce fantastic, flavourful food. We use some of the techniques we've shown, like freezing the rice, because we acknowledge we can't spend 2 hours every day creating MasterChef worthy meals, so where we can bulk produce, we do. And we also use these techniques to use up things like misshapen vegetables, bolted onions, so that we all work on making the most of all the food we produce. I think that's important in the modern world. If you've enjoyed today's video, can you spare us 5 seconds? Give us a thumbs up down below. If you'd like to see more recipes, we do, for example, a completely homegrown chicken with ginger and spring onions. If you'd like to see recipes for that, let us know down in the comments. Chris Hamilton Waring asked for this video. He actually said he'd like to see our fried rice technique. So there you go, Chris. Hope it was what you were looking for. And if you'd like to see those videos, everything else we produce, tap on subscribe down there and hit the bell next to it. It's a completely free service, but it tells you every time we upload a new video. For today, thanks for joining us. Come back and see us soon. Take care.